All right, I'm gonna play some one-on-one. I'm still playing Tour 10. I know we have this new Solar States tournament coming out, and it's all at Sunshine Glades, and I can't stand Sunshine Glades. I suppose I could walk through and not play the holes and just walk through and then do it quick and then shoot another video. All right. That's what we'll do. I was looking at the holes just to refamiliarize myself. Sunshine Glades, when it first came out, didn't have all the holes. So there were several courses, and I can't remember all of them, but like the Oasis only had like 4 or 5 holes. And Sunshine Glades only, I don't think Sunshine Glades had all of them. And then they came out. They either came out, I think it only had 4 or 5 holes, and then they came out with the rest of the 9. And this hole right here, this first hole, so hole number 1, this is okay. So you got a par three, and what we need to get is a birdie, and what we're trying to get is an eagle or a hole in one. And you got a par 4, and what you're trying to get is a birdie, and what you're looking for is an eagle. And on this hole, on this par 4, if you do not get an eagle, you just dropped a shot, because the mass majority of the people that are in the bracket are going to get an eagle on this, and you have to get an eagle. Have to. Now, there's several ways to do it. The first way is there is a rough bump that you can do here, and you're gonna have to practice it with your clubs, and you're gonna have to look at your ball inventory to find the ball that you need to get in. And there is definitely an adjustment up in here. And I can't remember if we're doing like a 0 or a -5. There is an adjustment, and it's not a big adjustment, but there is an adjustment that's here. And we can kind of go for it. And it doesn't take a lot of spin to get up there, and you can really kind of go for hole in one if you're doing this rough bump. I've done this rough bump a bunch of times, and I've made one hole in one on this course, and it was from that spot. So you can do that. The other way you can do it is if you bring out the right ball so that you can get up into this area. Now, if you look at from the tee box and we draw a line, if we wanted to give ourselves 2 rings of separation here, and we draw a line from the tee box to that spot, we're going off in this direction. So we're trying to cover this angle. So when you put your second bounce over on the other side, it's best if you can use some backspin. So if you can engage a couple backspin, like just like maybe 2, or, depending on your club and what ball you've got, you might be able to get up here just a little bit closer, and you might be able to involve just a little bit more. The more backspin you can put on, if you have any left hand spin, it's gonna make that spin better to pull you over towards the cup. But even if you're in rookie and you just lay up right here and take the short little chip, you got a pretty easy eagle every time. Every time. Sometimes in one-on-one, if the wind is really bad and I run into this hole, I'll hit it over here into the clear and then go for the shot, because over here you're in max wedge, minimum short iron, and you got a pretty decent shot at it from over there. But when we're playing in tournament play, where we're really going to make sure we bring out the right stuff, really, we're either going for the rough bump or we're going for this spot right here and then trying to bring it around. What you have to watch out for here, if you're playing in this spot, is you got to be very cognizant of where your second bounce is, because your second bounce might be right there. But when you draw your line and you think about the arc of your shot, if you put curl on it to bring it towards the cup, over here where you'd want to be coming out to go towards the cup, now you're in the sand. And you can end up where you were in the clear here, but once you put that curl on it, so you really have to be in your mind's eye where your second bounce is out here. You have to be thinking about your arc and where that bounce is going to end up if you put curl on it. So be aware of that. You want to make sure that you give yourself enough room here. I saw my buddy Kyle Brady get a hole in one on this hole with an APOC from the tee box, and he was using this spot right here, and he did a max curl shot. And I couldn't believe that he did a max curl shot and he missed that tree. So if you're doing this, he did it, he got away with it, and he got a hole in one. And high five, everybody. Let's go get a beer. But I can't believe he missed that tree with a max curl shot. So if you do a max curl shot here, you could get lucky and it get through, and you could get unlucky and it hits that tree. And I think more often than not, it's going to clip that tree. So if you're doing this shot, trying to bring it around, be cognizant that if you put max curl on it, you're taking the risk of clipping these trees. So when you do this shot, you're going to have to do it with side spin and some curl, but not max. All right, hole number two. Hole number two. All right, this hole right here is straight up front. You can bounce over here and try and get up. You can bring a backspin club and start on the thing, but if you really want to go, this is the giraffe hole. Here's its legs, here's its neck, here's its head. If you're really going to go for it, you want to be in this spot right here and going straight up. And in the past, I've always started off at plus 10, and then you can work it. It might be plus 10, plus 0.1, or plus 10, minus 1, or you may work a small adjustment off of that, but starting at plus 10 is definitely a good place to start. There is a red line issue here. So if you're taking this with your sniper, if you have a lower developed sniper, you're going to probably have to bring out a bigger ball in order to hit this with your sniper. Otherwise, you're going to be in like minimum. And the red line might be such that if you've got a lower developed sniper, if you've got a tailwind, you might be able to, you may have issues depending on the clubs that you have. So you'll have to go out there with your clubs to see where you're at. I think in one-on-one play, like I've played this from the, I think with a small ball, you'll just have to check it out with your clubs to see where you're at. You might have to bring out a 3-power ball in order to give yourself enough room here. And if we've got a headwind day where you really got to pull the wind out this way, that may be an issue. So be cognizant of it. Like if it's a headwind day, you might have to bring out a bigger ball on a headwind day, or a lower wind ball or something to make it so that you don't have to adjust against the red line. But this is an extremely makeable par 3. Like we have a serious opportunity to make a hole-in-one on this. Serious. All right, this hole right here. Now, traditionally, there's a bunch of different ways that you can play this. On the traditional side over here, coming at the cup, there are several ways that you can play. For years and years, the green, let's talk about the green first so that we can see like how we want to approach it, like what our options are down here will dictate where we want to be over here. So the green's got a ridge that runs in it right here. Let's zoom down on it. And you can't really see it from here. This picture looks like it's all flat, but there's a ridge right here, and this is flat. And this is all running down. And so if you come in and you're on the flat and you're running towards the cup, if you ride along that ridge, what's going to happen is that your speed might be right, you might have been on trajectory and everything's good, but as it starts to fall off on the left-hand side, the terrain's going to force the ball to go to the left, and it just seems like it always misses. And then when it gets right down by the cup is kind of like in a little bowl area, and if you're on this side, it can end up drifting off at the very last second. It's like it's on track, and then it just drifts off to the right. And I have made a bunch of albies on this hole, but like this hole frustrates the hell out of me because I'm like on my drive shot, I'm in the perfect spot all the time. But if you're coming at it and you're trying to go straight at it like this, it can be a bitch. And if you want to do this shot where you're going straight at it, because it puts you in the clear, so I mean, it's hard to make a mistake if you do this. You may miss the cup, but you're going to be right there, you make your putt and you move along. You really want to be over in this area so that you can open up this rough and you won't have to have a ball that's got as much side spin. If you hit it over here and you want to do this, you're really going to be having to put more side spin in order to bring it back around to the cup. So if you want to just go straight at it, you don't want to do a rough bump, you don't want to do any of that stuff. Ideally, you want to be up here in the shadows so that you can open this up on this end. I have always done a 10% on the drive shot, and you can do this with a rock, a quarterback. I took this was a quarterback hole for me. And max top spin, no overpower. You can bring out a 3-power ball so that you got plenty of ball on the other side. You can do it with a katana, you can do it with a marlin, and you can just bring it around into this area. This area right here, it looks like this. And there's a flat spot here, and it's flat out to about here, and then the rough starts down here, and it rolls over the edge. This to me right here is transitional area. You do not want to start your ball off where you're already on the curve, because if you hit anything, especially if you hit great to the right in this situation, like you hit over here great to the right, your ball is going to go way to the right, or it's going to dive, and instead of bouncing up in the air, it's just going to dive over to the other side, and you're going to get stuck right here. You might get lucky and it bleed out into the fairway, but you could find yourself in a spot of bother. Ideally, you want to start off dead center, like set your rings up so that you're 3 rings off on this side, 3 rings off, or whatever club you got, just dead center in the middle of this. Give yourself plenty of room in front. Work out the wind. Max curl, max topspin. You should be fine. If you're going to hit over to this side right here, there is a rough bump that you can do right here where you can engage this rough bump. This isn't my particular favorite type of rough bump that you can do because it's an eye rough bump. So from that area, if you hit great to the right, you hit the fairway and you're off and running. If you hit great to the left, you're in the deep rough and you'll probably get stuck. And even if you get lucky and your first bounce is fine, your second bounce is so close right there that it's like you're hitting here trying to get to this clear area and you hit just a little bit to the left. Now that bounce is right there clipping the rough and you can find yourself in a spot of bother. These eye rough bumps are not my favorite way to go, but a lot of people will do this rough bump. And if you're going to do that, you really want to be as close to the tip as you possibly can so that you can give yourself a little bit of side spin in order to get to the hole. And bringing out a bigger side spin ball is definitely beneficial. And depending on what clubs you got, you could end up with red line issues depending on your distance here. So this will definitely be something you have to practice. Now, with all of these topspin boost balls out here, the pros or experts have been able to do this for a long time because they get much bigger winds and they can bring out a bigger power ball, and you can go from here and try and get instead of bouncing on this for your first bounce, you're bouncing over here for your first bounce, and you got bounce number 1 and then bounce number 2, and then you're trying to actually get over to this side. Now you may end up just on this, but you got a really good shot from right here. A much better shot from here than you do from either of these spots. Or if you got really lucky, you could actually get on the green. So bringing out a big power ball with topspin boost. Now if we had a big headwind day, it will be an issue, because I think in rookie, we pretty much have to, even if you bring out a big power ball, we pretty much have to have a neutral wind or a tailwind in order to get ourselves over here. And if we have any headwind, I'm not sure that that's possible. But you can get over here. Another way that you can do this, and it only takes a berserker, and you can do it with an extra mile, like if you got a maxed out extra mile, or an APOC is even better because it's got more curl, and it doesn't have to be a maxed out one. You can, only on days when we have some type of positive wind. Now, if it's a pure side wind day, you might be able to eke it out. But ideally, we want to have just a little teeny bit of forward moving wind. But if we have any kind of headwind, we won't be able to do it because the headwind's going to push against us about twice as much. So if we have a 2 headwind, it's really going to be pushing us back 4, and we won't make it. You can start off from the tee box and go right into this area right here and try and bring it around so that you're somewhere out on this plateau. And from here, you have a T rough bump. And I believe the last time I was here, it was like plus 10... It was like plus 10, plus 0.1, or there was a very small adjustment. I think I started off with 10%, and then I either added on or I took off 1. You'll have to take that a few times from that spot, but you have a great T rough bump from right here. Beautiful, beautiful shot. So we have kind of 4 different ways we can play it. We can do the straight up shot, we can do the eye rough bump, we can try and get over. Now you take a risk if you're trying to get over this creek, because you got a long ass bounce to get from here to get over there. If you can make it over here, even if you end up in the rough, you're still going to have a pretty good shot. Or if we've got a tailwind, we could try and go over here. But I think either one of these shots where we're really trying to go for it, these 2 shots, you really pretty much have to have a tailwind or an absolutely neutral wind. You won't be able to do it otherwise. But over here, you only need a berserker, and over here, I think you're going to need like a topspin boost ball. Bunch of different ways to play that hole. And the cool thing about it is that this hole, it's good to know all the ways that you can play this, because if you're playing this in one-on-one, and very seldom are we going to play it from over here, but in one-on-one. And I tried doing a max overpower hook shot where I was here, and I tried to bring it around so that like you could bring out a lower power ball and start off over here and try and bring it around the corner. And I don't think that worked out. I think I was able to get into like this area, but from over here, you're in sniper range, like maybe minimum sniper. So from over here to get over, I think maybe if you brought a Cataclysm, but I don't know with a lower power ball if you could get it done. Just some different ways to play it. There's always more than one way to play most of these holes. Like some of the par threes, there's only one way to play it. Come on. I mean, obviously you could hit it onto the green a bunch of different ways, but there's only, on a lot of these par threes, there's only one way to really, like if you're really going for a hole-in-one, there may only be like a preferred way. We have a bunch of different ways that we can play this hole as well. First of all, look at the green here with all of these freaking moguls. And I'm not talking about, these things are valleys. The Grand, it's not quite the Grand Canyon, but it's close. These things are tough, and over here it's flat. But if you get caught in an area here where you just dribble onto the green and then have to go through these, or even if you're here on the fringe and you got to rough bump it up, or chip it up from the fringe, a lot of times with a rapier we'll run our topspin. This is not one of those areas where you're going to run your topspin, because you're going to be going all over the freaking place. It's where you want to put on a couple backspin and get as close to the hole as you can, so avoid this area. So one way you're going to see a lot of people play this is where they just hit it out here and then go for it. But their second shot, while it's close, they've got to go through these little moguls in order to get to the cup, and you're going to be going through a hole and then up a hill and then a hole and then the cup, and it is going to be, the ball is going to be doing this stuff. And it even though you're this close and you hit it perfect and you made a great wind adjustment, if your speed was off just a little bit, when you encounter these moguls, you're going to get pushed off target. All right, sorry about that. So we talked about this shot going over through the stuff. The other way you can do it is if we've got I believe if we have a tailwind and we've got an extra mile that has all of its distance, an APOC that, if you got an APOC that's got all of its distance where it's at the, 240, you can give yourself a little bit of a window right here. So if we have a tailwind or a pure side wind, you've got a little bit of a window here that you don't have to do any overpower. If we've got a headwind, you might have to bring out a power 4 or a power 5 ball, depending on the headwind, in order to give yourself a little bit of a gap here so that you can work the wind out. You can start off right in this spot, and let's draw our lines. We can start off, we want to be right in here, giving ourselves a little bit of room, and you're going off towards the trees. And so from this spot, we're going to put on just a little bit of curl, and what we really want is bounce number 1, bounce number 2 to hit the rough and then bleed across the course. Whereas if you miss that rough on your second bounce, because you're going to have to put so much topspin on in order to bridge this gap, that if you miss the rough and you hit the fairway, you're almost always going to, I've ended up in this rough area. I'm not sure if I've made it to the sand very many times, but I've been in the rough back behind the cup I don't know how many times. And what you really want is to get your second bounce to clip and then roll across. So that's another way that you can play it. And this shot right here, you're definitely going to have to practice. This shot right here is pretty mindless. You can start off on this island and you can just bounce over to that area, and then you're really working on your second shot. But this shot right here, because we're trying to get on a 1, is a little bit tricky, because you're going to have to get your wind adjustment right. And this is one of those that you really want to know what kind of spin you're using so that you can try and clip that rough to get over. The other way that you can go, and this shot is back on the table, is that you can bring out, we used to do this with a big topper, but I think with some of the ball inventory that we have out there now, you might be able to do it with different balls, is that you start off from the tee box. Let's pull it up. You start off from the tee box. Let's draw a line to the cup, to the tee, and we're going to start right here, and we're going to try and get bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and then bounce number 3 is on the other side, and then you're rolling towards the cup. Now, this is the bounce that he bounce hole. I mean, if you make a bad wind adjustment, you will hit the fairway here and you will be screwed on this island. You might get lucky, but this little pad right here is not very big. If you set it up here and then you hit a great to the left or the right, you are definitely going to miss this island. Because think about it. If you got, let's say you're using an extra mile or like a mid-level APOC that's like in the 1.7 or 2.0 per ring range, and your rings are this big. You got these big ass rings. And you hit a one ring great to the left. That's 2 miles per hour. Okay? That's at the first bounce. But now when it gets to the second bounce, that angle is going to widen out. And so out here, you are way the hell off. You may be 2 rings off out on your second bounce, or a ring and a half. And so you're going to totally miss that island and end up in the drink. This is a huge risk, huge reward shot. If you make it, you're on. And not only are you on, but this side of the green over here is flat. So if you get a good run, you can actually, I've come super close to getting a hole-in-one on this hole on this side, but I've also ended up in the drink I don't know how many times. It is a huge risk, huge reward. So there's 3 shots that we can come down here. 2 that'll put you on in one, and 1 that you've got a really shitty second shot. And one-on-one, or if you're playing up in a higher tour and you find that the wind's blowing such that you just, you're in some trouble. I play this in one-on-one. This is a sniper hole for me. I come out here with a sniper and I lay the ball up right here, and then you have a perfect tee rough bump to go right at the green. Now, this isn't the first landing zone. The rough bump is perfect because it's a nice tee rough bump. The bad part about that rough bump is that you're coming in here and you're riding right along the edge of where those moguls are at, and so you got a lot of movement between you here and the cup. You're right on the edge of it. I have made this rough bump several times, and you can start off a little bit to the right and then use side spin to try and bring it around so that you're more on the flat. But that's how I play it in one-on-one. I play a sniper, do a sniper rough bump on the other side, and you can play that with a Marlin. You got plenty of room right here with a low power ball, so you can come out here. We got a bunch of different ways that we can play that hole, but this is definitely a hole that we want to get on in one. And I'm going to be, if I play, I'm going to be taking this shot right here. This shot's more consistent, and I take less risk. Now, you can end up in the water on this shot if you hit it great to the right, or if you put too much curl on it. You can end up in the water here, because if you hit on the edge, this edge rolls down. If you hit on the edge, it's going to force your ball to the right, and it'll dive, and it'll end up right here in the drink. So just be aware. Just be aware. All right, what's the next hole? Hole number 5. Hole number 5. This has never been one of my favorite par 3s. And there's a bunch of different ways you can play this. You can play it from back here and try and go at it. You can play it from on the side here where you're bringing it around. The thing I don't like, okay, if you hit perfect and you set it up right and you do the thing, what you have to look for is your second bounce, because your second bounce is going to be right in here. And if you're starting off over here on the side and you're trying to bring it around to the cup on your arc, your second bounce looks fine, but then when you arc it over, it's very easy if you hit a great to the left or the right to end up either in the sand right here, or when you swing it around and then you hit the great to the right, it ends up getting caught in the sand right there. You can start off, if you bring out the right stuff, you can start off a little bit closer to the front. And if you bring out a bigger side spin ball, we can go right at it. I always kind of like this area, even though I haven't had a lot of success in this area. I have made a few hole-in-ones, and it's definitely a shot that you got to work. You need a lot of backspin if you start here, and you need a bigger ball. You need to bring, like, if you're using your sniper, I think you still got to bring, and I took this shot a lot with a Guardian, but you still have to bring like a 3-power ball, and you can try and bring it around here. And what I was doing was I was setting myself up so that I was like dead center in the middle of this, because this kind of ramps down, and then there's a flat area right here in the center, and I tried to be right in the middle of that flat area where I was like 3 rings off of all of the stuff, so it gave me room to work out the wind and then just try and bring it around. I like this shot right here because what it does is it puts me in front of a lot of this stuff, and it is really kind of hard to overshoot this and end up in the sand. I very seldom have ever ended up in the sand. I haven't made it in the cup a lot of times, but I do get on the green, and you do not want to roll off the back. I think they changed this the last time we played here. It used to be where the cup was up here, and then it rolled down, and then before it got off the green, there was a bowl, and then here's where the fringe starts, so that the ball would roll down and get into this, and then it would get stuck on the green right here, and you had a putt from there, and it was a max overpower putt. You couldn't make it. So if you roll past the cup with any speed, you better hope that you get off the green, because if you end up down here in this bowl, you are screwed. SOL. All right. Now, there's a bunch of ways that you can approach this hole. In one-on-one play, I always play to right here. And this gives you a shot where you're doing first bounce here, you're going in between these bushes, second bounce, and you're going right at the cup. If you bring out a big enough ball, or if you got the right kind of clubs, you could take this same shot where you're here and you can do a rough bump off of this and try and go right at the cup, but those are kind of your options here. The other way you can go at it is you can go over to this side where you're getting bounce number one, and then you're bridging the gap, and then you're running it down, and you're down in here. And from this spot, and you really, if you want to do this shot, you need to take this shot a few times. And the first time you're taking the shot, even if you don't get over here, so you're out practicing and you're trying to get over here, and it's best if you can always do these without any overpower, but you should be able to get over there pretty easily without any overpower with like a 3 power ball. And getting up into the zone, you'll have to look at where that puts you on the other side and what club you want to bring, because you have some options on the other side. My preferred option on the other side is you can do a rough bump from here, but I think you might have to bring out, you might be able to do it with a Grizzly, but you might have to bring out, depending on what level clubs you have, you might have to bring out a Goliath in order to get the top spin to get to the cup. But you can bounce off of this and go bounce number one over and then run towards the cup. You can do the rough bump, or you can bring a backspin club and try and stick it to the cup. So you got some options if you're over on this side coming at it. The other way to play, so we got area number one, area number two, and the other way to play is in rookie. If we're playing in the tournament, you can bring out it'll be ball dependent based off of your clubs. We're going to get bounce number one in this area, and we're going to bridge the gap, and we're going to try and end up right there. And depending on where you're at here, you do have some options. You can do a rough bump, or you can go straight at it. I kind of like the straight at it approach. I will tell you, if you have lower developed clubs and you want to take this shot right here, and you should be able to do this with a power 3 ball, that if you get over here and you got lower developed clubs and you use a Kingfisher, and I love Kingfishers, especially if you've got lower developed stuff, because Kingfisher gives you some tools, and one of the tools that it gives you is backspin, which is what you're really, and it gives you ball guide. It gives you backspin, ball guide, and it's got some accuracy. But what it doesn't have is any distance. And if you hit out into this area and you got lower developed stuff, you may find that your Kingfisher doesn't get you there. It doesn't have enough, because what it doesn't have is topspin. So it doesn't have enough tops. You're at your red line and it doesn't have enough topspin to get there, and so then you're stuck in your long iron trying to do a backspin shot because it doesn't have, so you could end up having a red line issue down here. If you've got lower developed stuff and you play with a Kingfisher, you might want to think about bringing out a runner, because that'll get you, a runner's got more distance and it's got more topspin, so you should be able to get to the cup. It seems to me that there was, I think Tommy's got it listed here as like a 0 to the cup. What has he got? A 0. That might work. If there is an adjustment, it's very little. I mean, it'll be like 5 one way or the other. So you're going to we'll have to take the shot as the week goes on and see how the adjustment's working. But it seemed to me that there is an adjustment to the cup, but it's very small. And we've got a lot of different ways that we can get up there. My preferred way is here. But this is one of those things too where you need to have both of these shots in your bag, because it's not going to really make as big a difference in rookie because of our winds. But if the wind was blowing from this direction and you hit over here, you got a pure tailwind to the cup, that's kind of beneficial. If the wind's blowing this way and you hit over here, you got a pure tailwind to the cup. If it's down the middle, you're gonna, both sides are kind of equal, but having both shots in your bag is not a bad idea. And knowing that there's more than one shot. I see a lot of people come on these holes and I think they only know one way to go. So they only do one thing, and then the wind does not good for the shot that they're trying to take, but they don't know any other way to do it. So they force it. And knowing different ways to play the holes is always beneficial. Hole number 7, the duck hole. When they added more holes to this course, this is one of the ones that they added. In one-on-one, I always play over to this area right here, and I believe to the cup it's like a, from over in this area, it's like a 10%. You'll have to work that out. 10% and maybe a slight adjustment, something on top of that, but not much. Not a bad way to go. You can, if you bring out the ball and we got the right wind, you can try and hit into this area. I think even with a power 5 ball, you got to do overpower. And this is where one of those bigger balls with precision works out good, because you really want to hit that area where you're trying to get up into this zone so that you can hit this area and you can see where your ball is going. And this area right here is like a freaking magnet. It doesn't seem like this shit would be in play, but this, if you get cattywampus in this area where the ball is going to the left, you're going to end up in the drink. But you can try and use this area right here and try and bring the ball around and go right at the cup. I've tried going this direction, I don't know how many times, and I've never really been able to make it work out. I think you could get up to the tip here, or get up into this area so you have a fairly short shot, but trying to get through these trees at the very end, and then on the other side of the trees we have sand. It just seems like every time I've tried to go over here, and I've tried from over here several times to see if I could like go behind the trees or, and check it out, but it just seems like it never works out over here, and this is a dangerous shot. So there can be some danger involved in this, especially if you don't bring out a bigger power ball so that you can get into this area, this wider area here. So you're wanting to land in this spot where you've got maybe a ring and a half on either side. If you're using a lower power ball where you're here, you're literally going to have to make a 100% great wind adjustment and hit perfect, or you're going to miss that. And that's the deal. Here's another thing. You'll have to take this shot a time or two and hit this spot to find out what you want for your spin as far as top spin and side spin in order to stick to the cup and not overshoot. So you'll have to take it the first time, and it's not going to take everything. Well, it depends on the level of your clubs. If you got like mid-level, extra mile, 6, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood, it might take everything. But if you got upper developed stuff, it's not going to take everything to get you from this bounce to get over. But once you take it the first time and you see, like, really kind of watch your spin, put like mid spin on there if you got upper developed stuff and see where it puts you on the other side, and then you can adjust by adding on one or taking off one. The duck hole, the famous duck hole. We got the giraffe hole, we got the duck hole. Look at that. 2 named holes in one course. This is another great opportunity for hole in one. You can hit from over here and try and bring it around the bend. You can bounce off of this island, and it carries down here. It's one of those things where you want to give yourself, you don't want to butt yourself up against that transitional surface where you're right there, like you're half a ring. You want to give yourself some room here. Give yourself a ring or 2 rings. I'm a big fan of always giving myself 2 rings of separation, because it carries down in this area, and it's very easy to overshoot this and end up in the rough right here. Or you get on the edge and the edge rolls down at the very end and you hit on the edge and then it just flies over to the other side, and then you end up in the rough on this side. So you can go from this area, bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and then run up to the cup. Or you can come from this direction. My preferred way to do it is to bring out the stuff so that you can do a rough bump from right here and go straight at the cup. And this is another one of those ones that, like, starting at 10% and then making your micro adjustments after that. But we have a great opportunity for hole in one here. Once we figure out, the first thing you want to do on this hole is get your trajectory right, because the speed is going to be a little bit weird here. This hole, and it seemed like maybe they changed the way that this hole went, because it used to be that it was really easy to overshoot it. Like you looked at your ball guide and you looked at everything, looked like you were going to go right at it, and you hit in the right spot, and then and then it just picked up a lot of speed and went past it by quite a bit. So I like the rough bump here, and I think we have a great opportunity. I don't think that our opportunity is as good on this hole as the giraffe hole, the earlier par 3, but it's close. We have a really good opportunity to get in the hole right here. Really good par 3, and several different ways that we can play it. In one-on-one play, I almost always bounce off the island, just because I've got a lower power ball, and it's just, if the wind's blowing along this axis and I can reach the rough, I'll almost always do the rough, because it doesn't matter if you make a bad wind adjustment. If you did a 10 and you should have done a 20, or you did a 20 and you should have did a 10, or you did a 0 and you should have did a 10, it won't matter because the wind's blowing along the area, so it's just going to push you over and you're still going to be in the rough. But if we get some big headwinds or we get some big tailwinds here, because I can't remember the adjustment, I will tend not to do that rough bump and I'll bounce off the island. Hole number 9. Hole number 9. All right, we have several ways that we can play this as well. You can go over here, and in one-on-one, this is pretty much the preferred way, because if you bring out a marlin and you're playing this, you can start off from here and you can try and get out into this zone. It is kind of hard to get all the way to the tip. I was being a little optimistic when I drew that. What I meant was, like, you can get out into this zone, but it's super easy on this shot to overshoot this and end up going in this rough. You can end up in the sand, but more than likely, if you screw up on this side, you're going to end up in the rough up here. And if you bring out a big enough ball that you could get way up here into the tip so that you could try and bring it around and take it all the way to the front, why didn't you take the shot over here? But in one-on-one, we play this side over here because you don't have to have a big ball to do it. And, you know, our red line's already up in this area, so if your red line's here with a small ball, you're not going to be able to make it over. But in tournament play, where we're bringing out bigger balls and we're setting up the hole, we can bring out a bigger power ball and we can start off right here and we can try and run the ball up and get into this zone so that we've got this shot to the cup. I keep threatening, and every time we get on this hole, I forget to... I should go out and spend some of my practice tokens to go out there and do it, but I think if you bring out... You can, if you bring out the right equipment, depending on what ball you bring out, you can get like up here along this sand. I have overshot this and been in the sand, but you've got a great shot from up here where you're just trying to run that ball up and get it into that area. But this hole screams for a max overpower hook shot, where you can utilize this pocket, especially if you have a tailwind, where you can really kind of get up in here and then run your curl all the way up and try and get all the way to the tip. And I think I have been up here in this area on several occasions, but I think it took something special to get there. But from this side, you've got a rough bump right to the cup. And once again, it's a very small adjustment. And I'm not so sure we weren't taking a little bit of wind off. It is a very small adjustment, but there is an adjustment that we need to make here. The one thing about this second shot is I freaking hate pulling over sand. Sometimes the sand doesn't distort your rings, and sometimes it does. If you're having problems when the wind's blowing in this direction, where the sand is distorting your rings, you're either going to have to make an adjustment for it, or what you can do if you're out in this area coming in is you can start off on the side and then you can bring your ball back around. You can give yourself a couple rings of separation here and then just side spin your ball to the cup. The rough bump is better. I think almost... Well, not all. I've played this hole a bunch of times, but I have made, probably percentage-wise, I've made more albies from this spot than any other spot. We have some options there, and the farther you can get up here, I think from back here you're in wood. It might be one of those things, depending on your club, that when you're back in this area, your sniper might not have enough distance to get up in here. So this is about the thing about practicing with your clubs. You'll have to come out and get the ball out into this zone and then see where you're at. And then go, hey, I need to get more distance in order to get the thing. So what did I take to get here? I used a Titan and I did max overpower and it got here. So maybe you're going to have to bring out a 4-power ball, or maybe you're going to have to bring out a 3-power ball that's got topspin boost. And then it won't matter about the second shot on that first time through. Then you'll have to come back out and take the shot again with the new ball in order to find out where that puts you. And it's like, okay, now that's the right one. Then you can start working on that second shot. I will tell you that this hole right here, I have had high hopes on this hole and gone in and there are several tournaments that I've lost on the last hole. And I believe that I lost a tournament of Sunshine Glades on this hole where this hole just ate my freaking lunch. Everything was going good. I was kicking ass, taking names, and I got on this hole and ended up tanking my drive and ended up getting a not eagle and dropping a shot. But we do have some options. There's a lot of good holes here where you have opportunities to pick up shots. I've just played these holes I don't know how many times, so I'm not a fan of Sunshine Glades, but there are a lot of holes here that we can pick shots up, especially the par 4s. I think on all of the par 4s, we got to get an eagle on that one. And then what was the second par 4? I'm not saying we have to get an eagle on this, but we got a serious opportunity, and then the duck hole, we've got a serious opportunity. So all three of the par 4s, we have serious opportunities to get eagle, and we've got every holes we've got shots. So it's going to be a wild ass tournament if people start sinking those shots. So I mean, who knows what the weekend's going to look like? I mean, it could be hell if you got a chance on all three par 4s. You're talking 15 right there, and then we've got great opportunities on the par 3s. At least two of the par 3s. The one par 3, the last par 3, I'm not a fan of, but the other two we have serious opportunities. The scores could be crazy. I like the tournaments where the scores are 26-28, where it is tough, and they don't have those anymore. Especially, that's why they've put signs and stuff out there on the course, because they're not trying to screw over the rookies. They could care less about the rookies. They're doing that because the Masters people are going out there shooting 42s every week. Like if you don't shoot a 21 on a side from the Masters tee in a 40-mile-an-hour wind, and if you're not shooting a 41, then, so they're putting signs out there in order to block them. I liked it. It seemed like in the past there was, there were some tournaments where it was tight. It was hard to pick up any shot. Like every hole was tough. And there's a lot of par 5s that aren't, hey, let's try and get an Albie, but if we don't get the Albie, we'll just get the eagle. There's a lot of, I'd like them to make more holes that like, hey, getting an eagle is a big deal on that par 5. You're going to be lucky. It's hard to get a birdie, let alone get the eagle. They don't make holes like that anymore. They have actually loosened the game up with all of the new ball stuff, and they've changed it to the point where it's so easy for the people at the top that are really good at the game to get high scores that they've put themselves in a box. I'm sure if they came out and they made tougher holes, the people at the top would start bitching that, hey, I can't get those scores on there. But for a rookie, we're that's one of the cool things about rookie is that a lot of that shit doesn't affect us. We still have to play the game and still have to have perfect, and we have to make great wind adjustments, even though the winds are lower, and everybody wants to poo-poo off the rookie stuff. It's hard to get big scores like that in rookie. So this week, though, I think 32 plus is what we're going to be trying to look at in the weekend round, and it could be crazy. It could be. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one. That was a walkthrough scouting report for the Solar States. Have a good week. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.